Bia, where you at? Where you at? Bia,
That's me.
Bia.
That's me.
Bia.
Yeah, that's me. What's up, Bia Gang, and welcome to Zakia Chanel Podcast. This isn't just a regular podcast. It's a place where we can let down our guards and be our authentic selves. So let's talk about it. The real, the tough, and the funny conversations. At the end of each episode, I want you to walk away feeling better than you did at the start. All right, enough of me talking. Breathe in, breathe out. Now let's get into the episode. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Zakia Chanel Podcast. I am your favorite podcaster, favorite Detroit podcaster. What's up, Bia Gang? What's up, Bia Gang? I love y'all. I'm so happy that y'all are back for another episode. So let's just go ahead and get straight into it. I am going to start with our praise break. So let's see. My praise break for this week will be, you know what? Let's just be my praise break. So I still volunteer for after school program for students, and the volunteers, we meet like on Mondays for our volunteer meeting to discuss, all updates, all of that good stuff. So before we even get started with the meeting, we do like a checkup, but it's not like an ordinary, like, hey, how you doing? Okay, next. It's like, hey, like truly, like what's going on? What's the ups, good things, down that's been going on in your life? And, how can we like be praying for you as well? And then we ask someone else to repeat what that person just said to just show like that you're truly listening. And I just think that is just so wonderful, because sometimes you may be talking in meetings or just talking to a group of people and you wonder, like, do they truly hear me? Do they really hear what I just said or anything like that? So I'm just happy that I have a safe space where I am able to just discuss like what's going on in my life and everything. So yeah, that's my praise break. Now, our meme for the week, I low-key actually, so I just went to my images and my nephew popped up because he had my phone earlier. Wow, these kids are hilarious. Why did my students take pictures? I'm not about to play with them. Anyway, so I have actually two memes for the week. My first one is, I don't care how hard life get, I'm still going to get a joke in. And that's literally how I feel. So I'm a person where a lot of people are like, girl, you just so funny. You so funny. And I truly don't even try to be funny. Like, that is not who I am. Don't put me up to be a comedian. No. But I guess that's just always been who I am. And I never really realized it until people have said something like, Kia, you're funny, or Kia, like, you just crack me up. And I just like, I'm just doing me. But it's so truthful. Like, no matter how hard life gets or no matter what's going on, I continue to unconsciously sometimes make a joke or just lighten the mood, or because I know that's what makes me happy. That's what gets me out of my mood. So I hope that it helps other people as well. And then my other meme for the week, and I need to create, I think the meme for the week is going to be called Oh My Stars. Y'all like that? Do y'all like that? I mean, I always say Oh My Stars anyway, so it'll be a part of it. Anyway, tell me in the comments if y'all like that or not, while I'm over here just sidetracking. Anyway, the next meme is dedicated because my birthday is March 29th. So this is my meme for all the Aries out there. And Aries will look directly at you and not speak. That's so true. Not on no disrespectful stuff, but like if you act like, I don't know if it's just me or all Aries, but like we can really like read people sometimes, and we can tell if somebody is like going to speak or not And so if you're not going to speak, I'm not going to speak. Like, I could just walk right past you as if you did not exist. And the same thing goes, like, if I truly, 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 truly don't mess with you, which it takes a lot for me to not mess with someone, but if I truly don't mess with you, I also, like, will just kind of ignore you and act like you're not there, like non-existence. So, yeah, T, that's me. So anyway, this week, wow, I actually feel like this episode is a little like not deep, but deep. Um, maybe I don't know. So I don't know. It's been a while, but I was listening to a podcast, and I think a listener was asking about like, what do you do when temptation like comes up, and it made me think like, you know, honestly, that is an area that not that I was dealing with, that I believe I have not overcame, but I have more understanding and knowledge of it. And so I want to talk about today temptation and feeling convicted, and like what's the difference of those two, because I believe like that a lot of people don't know temptation and being convicted, and how like those two things can connect, but also how like they can be different. And I also want to just talk about like my personal life story with it, and because that's the best way I can explain it. I'm no expert on this at all, but I just believe that it is important for me to share it, because I do believe that other people are out there where you have been tempted, and you have also been convicted, and you don't know if you truly been convicted or not, or you don't understand the signs, or maybe you saw the signs but you just did not realize like what it was or what it's called, and you don't really know how to move forward or how to even approach it or deal with it, acknowledge it. So I just want to talk about personally how I've come to terms with it. And so honestly, like, let's just be real first. Temptation is all around us. Temptation is like literally all around. Like, there's no way that you can get rid of temptation. That is the reason why God died for our sins, so that we can continue to be forgive from our sins that we have done, and not to just take that and run with it and say like, oh, I can just do whatever because I'm forgiven. But like, no, you're truly supposed to be asking God like to forgive me for my sins, and you're truly supposed to like turn from like your wicked ways. Like, you're supposed to turn away from the things that you are not supposed to be doing, that has continued to like hold you down. And so anyway, I just feel like temptation is all around us. I feel that it's a little bit harder now than it was in the past as far as temptation, or it is more at our hands, especially for our younger youth. Temptation, even for me, wasn't like a huge thing when I was younger, but now it's even bigger, where they have to deal with temptation at a younger age. And I think with each generation, it's becoming younger and younger, that they have to come to terms or understand really what temptation is at a younger age. And so I believe like maybe a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, I started to see how temptation began to turn into like being convicted, and having like being convicted of your sin, or what is tempting to you. So I first wanted to actually start with a Bible verse before I actually get into it a little bit. So this is Romans 14:22, verse 23. Keep your belief about such matters between yourself and God. Blessed is the one who does not condemn himself by what he approves, but the one who has doubts is condemned if he eats, because his eating is not from faith, and everything that is not from faith is sin. So we're going to dive a little bit into that. Again, that's Romans 14, 22 through 23. So we're going to kind of like, I'm going to show you how that Bible verse connects to what I really want to talk about for today. But in all, if it's not from God, it's not right, basically, and God gives us signal signs. He speaks to us in all different ways to allow us to see what we're doing wrong or right and how we should change it or maneuver or come into something new. And so everything literally is just at our fingertips nowadays. And temptation can be this small. Well, let's be real. God said all sin is equal. But some temptations can seem minute, where other sins or temptations may seem bigger and more serious to people. But that is just the projection that someone has on that temptation, So, like for me, I may think smoking is so bad, where somebody else may think that smoking is like minute compared to the other temptations, where somebody else may think being lazy is like a bad temptation, where to someone else it may be like it's not that serious. But it's not about the temptation itself. It is more about the convicting that God placed on you afterwards. And so temptation can be literally like anything from smoking to drinking to pornography to going to the club to laziness and like sleeping in to watching certain shows, listening to certain music, from sex to lust to greed to gossiping, jealousy. So obviously it can be a lot of things. And like I said, temptation is literally everywhere. But it's more of like, what do we do with that temptation? What are we going to do when we realize that we are being convicted of this thing? And that is the stage that I was in with some things, is that I hit a point where these things were just a part of everyday life, It's everyday life. Everybody has their own temptation. It's not a big deal. Either you do it, you go about it, you mind your own business, you say, oops, I'm so sorry, I want to do it again. Whatever the case is. And it wasn't like really a huge, big deal to me. I really didn't think it was that serious in a way. Like I knew it was serious, but I didn't know to what degree, I just knew, oh, this isn't right. Oh, you should not do this. And so the reason was, like I said, is because it was just like everywhere. Temptation was everywhere. It's like you could not get away from it. And then I realized, like, okay, temptation is literally bigger than what I think it is, because one day I was doing something, regular temptation, and afterwards it just felt bad. Like I felt terrible. Like, oh my gosh, like it's something where you can't even explain it. Just someone else who has been convicted of something understands the feeling that I feel. But it was just like something in your stomach that just did not feel right. And it was a sign where it was just like you knew that wasn't right and you did it anyway. And then I was like, oh, okay. Like that didn't feel right, that didn't feel good. I probably shouldn't do that, or I probably should, not think of that anymore, or whatever the case is. And then literally like maybe a few weeks later, like that temptation came back again. And afterwards, the same reaction was just like, yo, like this isn't right. You're not supposed to do this. And you are now at a stage in your relationship with God where he's not going to just baby you anymore. He's not going to just allow you to just swiftly get away with these things and say, hey, God, please forgive me or whatever. Like, those days are long gone. Like, you passed that stage, you passed that, oh, I won't whoop you basically, but I'm going to give you a warning. Like, I'm past those stages. Like, now God has put me in a stage where, hey, like, tap, 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 like your parents, like, tap, tap, tap. Hey, I warned you now, and you ain't paying attention to this warning. Now I warned you again. So if you ain't paying attention to this warning, I'm going to have to kind of whoop you, which means that something's going to have to happen for you to realize that this is serious and this is something more than what you think it is. And so that's how I felt, that God was like, okay, I gave you some warnings. You ain't really catch on to it. And now I'm like letting you know that there's no more strikes. Like, you have now elevated into this new thing and you need to get it together. And so that was the next stage of like, okay, that temptation changed into being convicted. God convicted me of that temptation, that sin. And once you are convicted, it's a lot going on in my brain. Once you are convicted, you won't ever look at that temptation as it just being another little temptation in your life. You're not going to look at it, regardless of what you do with that conviction. Once you are convicted, that mindset, that feeling in your heart, your stomach, your body is never going to go away. Like, you're going to constantly, every time you do that thing, whatever you do, whatever you decide, every time that temptation happens, God is going to literally convict you every time. Every time. Like, it's never going to go away. Like, once it lays down on you, it's never back to like the old ways. And so when you are convicted, you like now have to make that choice of like, am I going to go this way, or if I'm going to go down this road? Like, which road am I going to go with this being convicted? Like, road A is, okay, like, God help me. It may be some bumps, some little speed bumps, some slow downs, some little potholes, or you can just go down the other road of like it just being raggedy 24/7 because you decided that you going to ignore being convicted of this thing and you're going to do your own thing regardless. And also with that, like, of being convicted, I realized it was God, because not only did I not know it wasn't right or anything like that, but I realized it was God because it was holding me. It was holding me and keeping me away from something that I had going on for me. And it was holding me back from growing even more in my relationship with God. It was holding me back from stepping into my new with God. It was holding me back from what was for me that was coming up. And realizing that whooping, that tap tap is, okay, since you don't want to listen to what I just told you, what I'm going to do is now start taking things away from you, where you're going to realize, hey, this can go easy or it can be difficult. Like, you have that decision. You have that choice of what you're going to do. And like, God gave us that opportunity, that freedom to make a decision. Like, we all have a choice. Like, God doesn't say you have to do this, this, and that. He shows us what we need to do, but we have that decision of what we're going to decide to do. And so God was just like, look, like, I laid everything down for you, and now that it's all laid out, it's up to you of what you're going to do with this, like what you're going to do with this information that I just now gave you. And once things started getting taken away, or I just started seeing things become a little bit difficult, I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, God, I got it. I understand. You're saying, look, if you're not going to change, I'm going to just take things away and make it harder for you. I'm going to make it harder for you, because this is the only way you're going to realize it, or you're just going to continue to just have a hard life because you decided to just continue to go down this road. But the thing is this, everybody's temptation is different, and I think that's where we kind of like get stuck, or where people start judging other people. Because yes, temptations are all around us, but each person has their own temptations. But also, each person is convicted of different things. What I may be convicted from or for is something different than what you may be getting convicted for. And so I can't judge you on how you're handling your temptation by how I am handling mine, because you're being convicted of something totally different, which means that you have to go about it a whole different way, maybe. Or you may have to change certain things in your life differently than what I have to change in my life. And I think that that's something, honestly, that all right. Before we continue our conversation, make sure to follow me on all of my personal social media accounts to stay updated on what I am doing. You can follow me on Instagram at _KiaZ, _KIAAZ. You can follow me on Facebook at Kia Brewer. You can follow me on Snapchat at FabulousKia_4, or you can follow me on TikTok as Zakia Brewer. But make sure that you follow our podcast page as well on Instagram at Zakia Chanel Podcast. Okay, so where do we leave off at? And I just think that that's something as Christians that we should be doing better in, of judging people or helping people to see like that you being convicted of a temptation is different than someone else's, and to help people. Like, sometimes we just don't help people. We just judge and look and just be like, they shouldn't be doing this or they shouldn't be doing that. Like, okay, that's because you got convicted of that. That don't mean that that's what they convicted in. And so until God convict them, like, you need to mind your business. And I just think that's the problem. People don't mind their business. Anyway, though, but yeah, so each person temptation and being convicted is different, and it's a different road, it's a different journey, it's a different way of how God speaks to you too. And that comes into the next part of me when I was being convicted, was God then, once I decided, now there's the tip, once I decided to go the road to listen to God, that's when he started revealing things to me. But when I was being hard-headed and not paying attention or not caring or just saying whatever to it because I didn't think it was a big deal, or not even just that I didn't think it was a big deal, but I wasn't mature and knowledgeable in that area of God yet. And so I didn't realize the effect that it had on my life because I wasn't there. Like, my maturity when it comes to my relationship with God wasn't there to even understand and have discernment of what I was doing, and how me being convicted was also affecting things in the future for me. And so when I was going that other route and things were getting pulled away or becoming difficult, it was because of that. But God wasn't just pulling it away to make me suffer. He was pulling it away for me to get a lesson from it. And the only time you're going to receive that lesson, though, is when you continue to keep your heart open. Like, he's never going to leave you astray. He's never going to leave you alone. You're not going to be by yourself. And so, like, you just have to realize, oh, okay, God teaching me a lesson. And so now I have this decision of what I'm about to do. And so when I made that decision, like, okay, yes, I am going to go this route and I'm going to follow what God has for me or what God is telling me, he started revealing things. And it was just like a dusty sight in front of you became like very clear, very clear. What was first just dusty, you couldn't really see, couldn't drive nowhere because it's just so windy outside. Everything is just going all over the place. And then it was just like became very calm, and I was able to see. And God started revealing, like, okay, since you now realize that this was a temptation for you, and you have now been convicted of it, and you have now said, okay, God, I hear you on me being convicted of this sin, and I'm deciding to turn away from this, and I'm deciding to turn to you to help me to not continue with this temptation. was then when he was like, okay, so boom, Exhibit A. The reason you were being convicted of this was because I have this connected to you for your next. But I could not give you this next thing until you realize that this was convicted, because this next thing is helping someone else to get through their temptation. But if you can't get through your temptation, then how are you going to help somebody else get through theirs? How are you going to help someone else overcome what they are dealing with? And so that's when we have to just, I always say, you have to remember that people are attached to you, like that you are connected to multiple people. And if you don't get yourself together, you may be hurting so many other people who God has connected to you. And I constantly continue to remember that in anything. I think that's what keeps me moving and motivated and all of that. But that's when I realized, like, my maturity went up a notch. Like, oh, okay. So now that I have this discernment and I have knowledge on what God is showing me, I now realize that when He convicts me of something, He's trying to show me something else. But I first have to be open to saying, okay, yes, this is hard. This is something that I have difficulty with and that I need to work on, that I need to not do, that I need to be better at, that I need to change, whatever that may be, like that's what God was then providing and showing me the lens to. And so I think that people think that it's a smooth like road though. Like once it happens, it's like, oh, okay, God, start revealing things and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, you make mistakes and that temptation may come back up again. Yes, it's a test of if you're gonna fall back into the old ways, or are you gonna be like, nope. And it's okay if you fall back into that temptation. It's okay if you fall back into that temptation, because we're not perfect and we're all going to make mistakes and we're all going to have bumps in our roads. We're all going to fall back at times, and we may sink back into those old ways, but don't allow it to have power over you again. And that's the difference. Like, now that you have grown that maturity, you have that discernment and that knowledge that God has given you, when that test come back up and you may sink into it, you got to turn that switch on. Like, okay, now I got that discernment. I know what I'm supposed to do. Like, oops, I'm so sorry, God, but let me change my way. Like, let me get myself back together because of that. You don't want to just sink into it and be like, oh yeah, I ain't gonna turn that switch on. Yep, I'm here again, and we just gonna be here. Like, no, don't do that. So that is the point of just realizing, like, okay, I gotta turn that switch back on, because you're gonna make mistakes. I've made mistakes. I continue to not be perfect. I continue to go back into some temptation sometimes, depending on what that temptation is that I was convicted for. Sometimes it may be right before something happens or right before I do it, or whatever the case is. It's like, oh, never mind. Let me dismiss myself. Let me do this real quick, or let me not go here, or let me not go see these people, or let me not hang out with this person. Whatever that is, like, I have it where I'm like, oh, I catch it before you even catch me. But then I have other times where, like, other things that God has convicted me in now, where I fall into it just because I'm already there. My brain that switch ain't on, and I just be like, well, we here. And then I'll be like, oh, God convicted me again. Oh, let's rewind. Let's get this back together. And so I just want you to know, like, that it is okay if you fall back into that temptation, and you just have to realize that you have to push forward to not allow you to fall back into it. And the few mistakes, okay, cool, but at a certain time, like, you don't want it to be where you're constantly like going back into it, because then that means that you're not learning your lesson. That means that you're not even taking it serious. you kind of just doing it because you want God to reveal things to you, or you want your blessings that God has for you. And so you do it to get it, and then you go back into your old ways. Like, you don't want to be that person. You don't want to do that. And so that's another thing to like just think about when those things are like occurring or when you're being convicted. But I also wanted to share something. I don't know where it's at, guys. But yeah, so I can't find it right now. But just know like that you have that choice, and God has given you that choice. And it's basically saying that either you're gonna be faithful to God or you're gonna be unfaithful. Like, point blank, period. That's exactly what it is when you're being convicted of. Are you going to take this new leap in your relationship with God and be faithful in this realm, or are you just going to stay stagnant in where you're at? And you don't want to be stagnant. You don't want to be lukewarm. You don't want to be that. Like, that's what you don't want to do. But also just understanding, which I had to understand as well, is that we're all in different places in our journey with God and our faith. And this goes beyond just being convicted of something, but just in every aspect of your relationship with God. It's just understanding that we are all in different journeys, and we are all at different levels and stages within it. And so you don't ever want to compare yourself to someone else, but you also don't want to beat yourself up. Like, there are times where I may be in a room with other people who are at this stage in their relationship with God, and I'm like still down here. And sometimes like I may beat myself up because I'm like, well, why I'm not like that? But my story is different than their story. And I have to continue to remind myself that my story is different than their story. So because of that, my journey, my stage is going to be different. Like, and you never know what occurs in people's life. Someone can be up here at this time in their life, and I could be right here. And easily, something that I had already had to deal with at a young age, I've already overcame, that this person up here haven't overcame yet. And that thing may shut them all the way down to either get right here with me or even lower. And so that's another thing, like, people's journeys go like this, based off of life situations and challenges, and where your relationship is at. Like, sometimes people think just because they up here, like, oh, I don't gotta do much, like, I already did everything, like, God got me, and I'm good, God got my back, I'm going to heaven. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people feel like that they're in high, that they are just on a higher stagnant or higher platform than other people, and believe that they don't have to do the work anymore, or they become very relaxed in what they're doing. We're someone who may be down here, we working because it took us a minute to get into this relationship with God, and so we ain't just stopping now. Like, we're going to continue to work on it and push it and move forward and go higher and higher. And so that's just, where I'm at. And I think that could help people out to just know, like, don't beat yourself up and don't compare yourself to where someone else is at. But then also be open, no matter what stage you're in, whether you're up high in your stage in your relationship with God, or you're down here still in your baby stage with God. Like, never allow yourself to be close-minded, because you can learn from someone that is at a different stage in their life that's a little bit higher. But then also that person up there can learn from you, like vice versa, So it doesn't matter where you're at, what stage, what level you're in with God. We can all learn from each other. And that's the reason why God has placed us all on this earth, is because we can learn from truly, like, anyone. You can learn from God. Put this person in your life for a specific reason, to learn something. That lesson can be anything, and so you never want to be closed-minded to think, oh, I can't learn something because I'm on this high platform and can't nobody touch me, and I know everything already. Don't be a I know everything already type person. And then just be open-minded to people who are still in their slow stages. Like, that's what I had to do. I had to continue to stay open-minded, because sometimes I would shut down because I would feel like, oh, they're just trying to show off, or oh, like I'm never going to get into that part or get to that stage in my life with God, or when is this going to ever happen to me, or will I ever receive this type of gift the way that they have, or anything like that. And I had to just remind myself, like, don't be closed-minded, like always be open-minded to everything. And that leads me to my last thing, I believe, is connected to what I was saying of realizing like what road you're going to go down. Are you going to be faithful or unfaithful? Are you going to acknowledge what you've been convicted for? Or are you going to continue to be oblivious to it and acting as if you don't have that feeling, or acting as if that sign that God has given you is unreal, or it was just a coincidence, or that was just how it was that one time. This Bible verse, Matthew 6:13, and it's basically like what Jesus taught his disciples to ask God. And it's in our prayer, like, do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Like, God, just simple as that. Like, don't lead me into temptation, but deliver me from all evil. And that's just specifically how it is. Like, I don't know. Can it be clearer than that? Like, we have to remember to ask God to continue to help us get through our challenges and our temptations. We have to just remember to ask God that. And I think that that's the thing, because you could just go about it and never be like, God, like, for instance, I was watching this podcast, and this girl was talking about like something that has been a temptation for her, and she has acknowledged it, and she knows that she's been convicted for it, but it's hard for her to change her ways. And so, like, now it's to the point sometimes where, like, she can be in the action of doing this thing, and she just like, yeah, God, like, can you, I don't want this to be how I cope with things. Like, I don't want this to be my coping, or not even just coping, but like, God, I don't want to find this pleasing. I don't want to be happy by this, or I don't want this to be a feel good. Like, I want to be able to turn to you in all ways. And so that's just what this means when we're asking God to, like, not lead us into temptation. But when temptation does occur, like, God, deliver me from this evil, like, deliver me from this sin so that I can turn away and turn to you. Like, I want to turn to you when that happens. I do not want to turn away and continue to just go down the road that I know I'm not supposed to go down. So last thing is just like, God is just saying that, which I'm going to put into my running so that, yeah, let's put it all together.
Run and tell that, on.
But just like ending it that, we're all going to be tempted. That's never going to go away. Temptation is always going to be right here at our fingertips. But it's, what do you decide to do when you become convicted? What is your mindset going to be when God convicts you of it? You know that you have been convicted of that thing. You know that you've been putting it on the back burner and have not wanted to acknowledge it. Or you have acknowledged it, but you haven't realized what steps you need to take once you have been convicted of it. Whatever area you're in, know that if you don't go down the road to say, God, yes, I acknowledge it, and I'm ready to turn away from this temptation, this sin that has been holding me down, and I'm ready to put my faith in you to allow me to overcome this temptation, God is not going to reveal certain things from you. You're going to continue to be stagnant. You're going to continue to go in a circle. And I know this sounds harsh, but it's the truth. And I don't ever want to leave my listeners, I don't ever want to leave you all with a sugar coat of, oh, yeah, I just want you to feel good at the end. And, you know, that's the end of you watching or listening to my podcast. Like, no, I want you to also, like, I'm a real person and I want you to understand what you're deciding to do when you decide not to acknowledge it. You know, like you're deciding to not receive your blessing. You're deciding that forget these people that God has connected to me. And you're deciding that you would rather just be coast. Like, you would rather just be level-headed the whole entire time. Like, you're not even willing to give yourself a challenge. You're not even willing to push yourself into something that you don't even know that you can achieve and overcome, you know? Like, believe in yourself. Like, that's my running tell that. Believe in yourself that you can overcome whatever you've been convicted for. Believe that God has your hand in it. Believe that you are not alone. That there's other people who has also been convicted of the same thing, or there's other people who have also been convicted, period, point blank, and had to come to realize that if they did not acknowledge it, they were never going to receive their blessing that God had for them. And it took you to get things taken away, and it took for God to kind of whip you a little bit and tap your hand for you to understand it. But now that you do understand it, know that you got it. You got it. Like, and don't let nobody ever think that you don't have it. Don't allow this world, because of what we're in, to allow you to just continue to just do what everybody else do. Like, do you really want to be a follower? Like, do you really just want to be so ordinary and just so original? Like, or no, do you want to make real change in this world? Do you really want to, like, are you ready to make real change? Are you ready to step into your new and be different? You know? And the people, let me tell you this, the last thing. The people who really support you and ride for you in your relationship with God, your stage, where you're at, the people who are going to be there, God's going to continue to keep them there. The people who was not ever meant to be, baby, when they leave, let them go. Deuces, bye. You wasn't right no way. Like, you wanted me to be boring. You wanted me to be just here. Like, ew. What type of friend is that? You don't want that type of circle. You want people who are going to support you, encourage you, push you, tell you the realness, allow you to become new, allow you to blossom into something that God has for you, but also be there when times are hard and you just need to cry, you just need to talk it out, you just need to say, look, this is hard right now. Like, have those people in your life, because those are the people who are going to continue to always be right there by your side. So yes, that is my podcast episode. That is everything I wanted to talk to you all today, of just being about temptation and being convicted, and what do you do next? How did this go? What did this look like? And just knowing like that you have a decision and it's in your hands. So without further ado, thank you again for tuning in, for watching, for listening. Make sure if you watch it on YouTube, like, go over to my different platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of those good little platforms, and subscribe there. Leave a review, because that's what get my numbers up. But also, if you are a listener, which I love, and you on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other platform, make sure you go over to my YouTube and watch me. See how I look, because, you know, I be giving entertainment, right? Who knows? Anyway, but yes, come to my YouTube, subscribe, leave a comment, you know, like a video. Either way you decide, make sure that you share it with people. That's what you need to do. Share it with somebody. Help somebody else. Yes, like, share it, leave it with some people. I love you all. I will see you in my next podcast. Continue to stay blessed, and I'll see you next time. Love you, Bia Gang. Hey, don't leave me hanging. Before you leave, make sure that you subscribe to Zakia Chanel Podcast. You can listen to my podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Buzzsprout, Google Podcasts, and SoundCloud. Or you can go over to Zakia Chanel TV on YouTube to listen and watch the podcast. Looking for someone to host your event, or you want to learn how to start your own podcast, or you need organizing tips, I'm your girl. You can contact me via email. You can also reach out to me via email if you need any advice on anything at Zakia Chanel Podcast at gmail.com. Remember, it starts with you. Be blessed and take care of yourself. My feet are so cold, and I usually always have socks on. I don't have socks. The crap. Oh, they can't even see it, period. Can't even see the blanket. That's because I'm sitting in the middle. Like, why do I be sitting directly in the middle where the lowest of the couch is? What the heck? Anyway, fix my little decor. Okay. Closer. Do. How can you extend this? Oh, you ain't got me started. Right there. Yes, honey, yes. All right. When I, Jesus. Not the iPad. Because, anyway, Lord, let this be a great episode.